The Apocrypha isn't on par with the Jewish scriptures, and Jesus teaches this. In opening his disciples' minds to understand the scriptures, Jesus tells them that everything written about him in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms must be fulfilled. This threefold division is what we've come to call the Tanakh, a reference to the law, the prophets, and the writings. Jesus uses the title the Psalms here because it would have been the first main book in the collection that would have been used to reference all of the writings. In other words, when given a chance to cite the Old Testament canon, Jesus leaves the Apocrypha out. Interesting to note, however, is that the Jewish scriptures are actually organized differently, starting with Genesis but ending with Chronicles. And for this reason, we see a second reference to the Jewish canon that excludes the Apocrypha. In Matthew 23, Jesus makes this obscure reference to the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah. What's the significance of these two names? In taking the Jewish scriptures arrangement into account, this would have been the first and last death in the Jewish scriptures. Here in Genesis 4, you have Cain killing Abel. And here in 2 Chronicles chapter 24, you have Zechariah, who is martyred because he's conspired against and they stone him. Jesus is citing the literary structure of the Jewish scriptures by referencing the first and last martyr in them. That is to say, in his obscure reference, he's appealing to the authoritative Jewish scriptures, which again excludes the Apocrypha. This is why you have men like Jerome or Cardinal Cajetan within church history who have always recognized there was a distinction, that there was the canon, the infallible rule of faith, and then there was a lesser canon, the Apocrypha or the Deuterocanonicals, that though they weren't the authoritative rule of faith, they nevertheless could be beneficial to read for edification. Now at this point, someone might say, well, the Septuagint is earlier than the Tanakh, the Jewish scriptures, and thus it included the Apocrypha, so it precedes the Tanakh. But the final emergence of the Tanakh is not the moment of its arrival in history. Again, we've already seen Jesus appeal to it in Luke 24 and Matthew 23. As Roger Beckwith notes, though this tradition is traced back to the Talmud in 500 AD, it actually appears to be an organization based on a list provided by Judas Maccabeus in 164 BC.